All right, less Kings talk, more whatever.
Oh, yeah.
All right, could you imagine tasting colors, or what about seeing walls breathe, or even the world warping around you? Well, this is what users of LSD often experience on a trip. So, I've never done LSD myself, but I have been around people who've done LSD, more so like a caretaker while they're on it, and so I could attest to the things that happen while on LSD. Well, first off, what is LSD? LSD, formerly known as lysergic acid dithylamide, is a powerful hallucinogenic first created by Albert Hofmann, a Swiss scientist in the early 1930s. But it wasn't until the 1960s that LSD was readily produced and available for everyone to take. It was commonly used by psychiatrists in order to help their patients break through their mental struggles, such as like depression or addiction, things like that. And it was often taken by the psychiatrists themselves to even better understand their patients' problems. So today I'm going to present to you the positive and the negative effects of LSD. But first I'll describe to you the basic LSD experience, or what happens to you while you're on LSD. LSD is taken orally on a blotter, which is just a little piece of paper, and you put that on your tongue, and it takes about an hour to kick in, and then for the next 10 to 12 hours after that, you will be on your trip and experiencing intense colors, extreme euphoria. Music is apparently just the best thing ever on LSD. And I have a video that of some British troops back in the day taking LSD. This is what happened to them.
The drug was administered in a drink of water given at the start of each day's exercise. 25 minutes later, the first effects of the drug became apparent. The men began to relax and to giggle. But this man was more seriously affected and had to be removed from the exercise. After 35 minutes, one of the radio operators had become incapable of using his deck, and the efficiency of the rocket launcher team was also very impaired. 10 minutes later, the attacking section had lost all sense of urgency, noticed the bunching and indecision as they entered a wood occupied by the enemy. Almost immediately, the section commander tried to use a map to find the location of troop headquarters, and the prisoner's escort had to have the way pointed out to him, although it was in plain sight, 700 yards away over open country. 50 minutes after taking the drug, radio communication had become difficult, if not impossible, but the men are still capable of sustained physical effort. However, constructive action was too.
So as you can see, taking LSD definitely has a very strong effect. And that experiment was for, the military wanted to use it as a mind control, and they wanted to like drop it in mass amounts on the enemy forces to hopefully impair them, but they found that was too hard to do, so they didn't do that. So let's go with the negatives of LSD. With any drugs, there's positives and negatives. So not everyone enjoys LSD the same way. The main negative effect of LSD is having a bad trip, and a bad trip is basically 10 to 12 hours of panicking, a fear that you're gonna die, just mass hysteria instead of the mass euphoria that the users of LSD look for. And on a bad trip, people could kill themselves. It's rare, but it happens. Jump out of windows, try to swim and can't, and drown. But also, the negative effect is the mental problems that it can induce. When it was originally invented, LSD was thought to damage chromosomes and alter people's DNA. That has found not to be true. So it really has no physical damage, but psychologically, it can bring about schizophrenia and mental psychosis in those already prone to it. So if you have no family history of schizophrenia or psychosis, then you should be fine. But if you do, I do not recommend LSD for you. LSD is non-addictive, and yeah, so that's basically the negatives. The bad trip aspect is terrifying from what I hear, and not advised, I guess. I don't know how you not have that. But something considering before doing LSD, 10 hours of an LSD trip is not worth a possible lifetime of mental problems. So, now on to the positives of LSD. LSD was created in mind with helping people, and it has done so. In studies done by Dr. John Halpern of Harvard Medical School, out of all the alcoholics tested, or who took LSD, 59% of them had consumed less alcohol after taking LSD, opposed to only 35% who just did the typical AA treatment. And LSD is also used to treat cluster headaches. If you don't know what cluster headaches are, basically it's just intense headaches that last for anywhere from a couple hours to a couple weeks, and it is apparently the worst pain that you could possibly experience, worse than childbirth. And people who illegally took LSD in a study by Terry Krebs, Dr. Terry Krebs, up to 90% of them, after their first dose of LSD, did not have cluster headaches anymore. So, and another positive effect that can't really scientifically be proven, but people experience a detachment from their ego, and once they detach from their ego, they say they have a better sense of reality, of the world around them, and a lot of the time they have a better life after taking LSD just due to their newfound take on the world. Steve Jobs, maybe some of you heard that he has taken LSD, and he said that it was one of the 3 most important things that he ever did in his life. And I think he said he did it about 15 times on gelatin and also the blotter that I was telling you about. The full medical potential of LSD cannot really be studied right now because it is a Schedule I drug like marijuana. Schedule I drug is basically listed as something that has no potential medical value and is highly illegal. So, in conclusion, LSD is a very powerful compound and shouldn't be taken lightly. Anytime you put stuff into your body, you should really think about what the long-term effects of it could be. But hopefully after what I've told you, if LSD is presented to you, you could make the right decision for yourself.
You want to hear my ringtone? Or I'll show you after. What's that?
Dennis, what did you think?
Right, I thought he was a bit nervous, kind of speaking, even though he was very clear in what he was presenting. I thought his visual was very powerful. He kind of gave us an example of what side effects it does, and according to the time frame that I guess it tells you in the video how long it takes for things to kick in. I like the fact that even though he hasn't personally experienced it, the fact that he's seen people on it, he's been with people on it, and he's kind of just seen the side effects that it does have. I think it serves as a credibility for his speech. I didn't like the fact that for all his negative aspects of LSD, I don't feel like he had a lot of citations for it. I don't know if it was just if you read it online, or this was coming from doctors or something, these negative side effects. I felt like he had a lot stronger positive I guess, positive feedback on citations for it. And yeah, I think overall he did pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, the topic's clearly identified. I think you've got a clear statement of the thesis. There's a good preview. I thought that there was a very good transition between the first and the second points. That helped quite a bit on organization. It's a, it's a basic two-part structure, although you have a little bit of background at the beginning and then there's a little bit of summary stuff at the end. It's still basically the two parts. Yeah, I thought both of them were a little under-supported when it came to research. I thought in the last third of the speech is when I heard most of the research being presented. And the other things that you presented, that sounds like stuff that I've heard before, but I'm not hearing that it's, where it's coming from or what the basis of this is. We got some vague stories, both the positive and the negatives that it's having these particular benefits on or harms to, and I think that you want to cite that a little bit more completely. I did think that the video clip was pretty effective. The idea of giving rocket launchers and guns to people who are on LSD, though, is even for an experiment, seems to me a little iffy. But the illustration was good. It did seem to go on for a while, but I know that there were good points that you were showing that was going on there. Some of the stuff on, for instance, the risks of schizophrenia and those kinds of things, I think that needed to be explained a little bit more, and like Dennis was saying, I think the source citations on that needed to be given also. I thought that you did a nice job speaking to the audience for the most part. You're not overly dependent on the script. You seem pretty natural when you're talking to the audience and engaged, so I thought that came across effectively. All right.